Get ready for this. New findings from NASA are painting a picture of ancient Mars that just completely rewrites what we thought we knew. We're talking about solid evidence that Mars once had real rainfall, long-lasting rivers, and, yeah, maybe even rainforests.
So let's just dive right into that central, mind-bending question. What if the red, dusty planet we all know and love was once, well, green, and maybe even teeming with life? It honestly sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but this is the very real possibility that scientists are now grappling with. So let's get into our cosmic detective story.
You know, every good mystery needs a starting point, a first clue. And in this case, the first piece of the puzzle wasn't some fossil or an ancient ruin. Nope. It was a specific type of mineral that the Perseverance rover found just sitting there on the floor of the Jezero crater.
And that mineral is called kyolinite. Now this is where it gets really interesting. See, here on Earth, this kind of clay only forms in warm, wet places with a ton of rain. And we're not talking about a quick storm. We're talking about rain that has to fall consistently for millions of years. The kind of rain that feeds jungles, not deserts.
And this is really the key takeaway, isn't it? Kaolinite isn't formed by some quick, catastrophic flood or a melting glacier. It's the result of a stable, long-term process. It really implies a whole world with a thick atmosphere and a functioning water cycle. You know, clouds, rain, rivers, the whole shebang. A world that was pretty comfortable for a very, very long time.
So the bottom line is this. When scientists saw kaolinite scattered all over the Martian landscape, it just completely flipped the script. The best comparison for ancient Mars was no longer the frozen, barren plains of Antarctica. All of a sudden, it was the lush, waterlogged basin of the Amazon. Just think about that for a second.
Okay, so we've established a warm, wet climate. That's a huge checkmark for habitability, for sure. But there's a problem, right? The surface of Mars is absolutely bombarded by deadly radiation. So if life ever did get started, where could it possibly have hidden to survive?
8. That's the number. The number of these strange features scientists spotted from orbit. And no, they aren't impact craters. They are something much, much more exciting. They're skylights.
So it turns out these 8 skylights are basically giant holes that drop straight down into these vast ancient underground cave systems. And these caves, they're the absolute perfect hiding spots. They shield anything inside from all that lethal surface radiation, they provide stable temperatures, and they act like a natural time capsule, potentially preserving the chemical fingerprints of life for billions of years.
So the story is really coming together now. We have the right climate for life to begin, and we have the perfect shelter for it to survive. But is there any direct evidence? Is there a smoking gun out there that points to actual biological activity?
Well, yes there is. Meet Shayaba Falls. This is a rock that broke off a cliff face billions of years ago, and the Perseverance rover just happened to stumble upon it. And what it found on this rock is, you could argue, the most compelling evidence for life on Mars we have ever seen.
Okay, so Perseverance found 3 absolutely crucial things on this rock. First, organic molecules, the building blocks of life. Second, it saw these pale spots with dark rims, kind of like leopard spots. And inside those dark rims, it found a mineral called vivianite. Now, vivianite is really special. It only forms when iron atoms gain electrons. That chemical process also happens to change the iron's color from rusty red to pale, which, perfectly explains the spots. So the huge question is, what could be moving those electrons around?
And this is where it gets incredible. Scientists believe that ancient microbes could have literally been eating the rock for energy. They could have taken electrons from those organic molecules and basically fed them to the iron in the rock. This simple act releases a little burst of energy, just enough for a microbe to live on. And the chemical byproduct of that meal? You guessed it, vivianite, the exact mineral NASA found. It's a perfect match.
So you see how the evidence is just so powerful. The climate, the shelter, and now a potential sign of metabolism, it's all lining up. But, and this is a huge but, this is one of the biggest scientific questions in history. So before we can say for sure, how do we confirm that these signals are really from life and not just some weird non-living chemistry?
Well, we practice right here on Earth. Researchers went to a gypsum quarry in Algeria, which is a perfect stand-in for Mars because its mineral layers trapped ancient bacteria millions of years ago. They're using a new laser device to zap the rock and read the chemical barcodes left behind by life, learning how to tell the difference between the signature of a microbe and just a regular old mineral. It is, quite literally, a dress rehearsal for the real thing.
In all of this research, all this practice, it's all pointing towards one ultimate goal: sending humans to Mars to find the answers for themselves.
And when we finally go, the mission plan is crystal clear. Goal number 1, above everything else, is to find life, past or present. After that, of course, comes understanding the planet's water and carbon cycles and decoding its geology. But let's make no mistake, finding out if we ever had neighbors is the absolute top priority. And that leaves us with one final, fascinating thought to chew on. All of this evidence suggests that Mars was once a habitable, maybe even a thriving world. And if it did host life, it really makes you wonder, are we the first inhabitants of this solar system to look up at the stars and ask if we're truly alone?